The receipt in my hand showed a $15,000 withdrawal I never made. My brother Marcus's signature at the bottom. My hard-earned money, gone. But let me back up. You're probably wondering how I, Eliza Morgan, ended up here, trembling with rage in a bank while working 3 jobs to support a family that had been lying to my face for years. It started 2 years ago when Marcus and his wife Veronica showed up at my doorstep with tearful eyes, claiming they'd lost everything. Just until we get back on our feet, they begged. I believed them. Family helps family, right? So I took extra shifts at the hospital, picked up weekend work at the cafe, and even drove rideshare at night. I paid for groceries, utilities, their car insurance, everything. I slept 4 hours a night while they stayed home job hunting. The headache started first, then the dizzy spells. The night I collapsed from exhaustion, they didn't even drive me to the ER, said they couldn't afford the gas. I took a taxi home after my diagnosis, severe burnout. That's when I noticed Veronica's new designer purse hidden under her old coat. Curiosity led me to their room while they were out networking. The shoebox under their bed contained 5 credit cards in my name I never applied for. Their closet hid shopping bags with tags still attached. Their browser history showed resort bookings in the Maldives for next month. I confronted them that night. Marcus laughed in my face. "You're so gullible, sis. Always were." Veronica smirked. "It's not our fault you never ask questions." As I stormed out to my car, dizzy with betrayal, I never saw the truck crossing the divider. Impact, darkness. Then, inexplicably, light. I opened my eyes to find myself 5 years in the past, before they ruined my life, before I became their personal bank. This time around, when Marcus calls with that familiar desperation in his voice, I already know what he'll say. But this time, I have something new to tell him. No. This time, I recognize the calculated tears, the practiced stories. This time, I see through their act before it costs me everything. Family doesn't exploit family, and I won't be their victim twice. My name is Eliza Morgan, and this is the story of how I died from exhaustion, trying to support my scheming brother and his wife, only to be reborn with a chance to rewrite my fate. I always knew I was the responsible one in the family. While our parents struggled to make ends meet, I studied hard, earned scholarships, and put myself through nursing school. Marcus, on the other hand, was the charmer. He could talk his way into and out of anything. Our parents adored him, despite his tendency to borrow money he never returned or make promises he never kept. When our parents passed away in a car accident 5 years ago, I was devastated. Marcus seemed more concerned about the inheritance. There wasn't much, just the family home with its mortgage nearly paid off. We agreed to sell it and split the proceeds. At least, that's what I thought we agreed to. The day before closing, I discovered Marcus had remortgaged the house using forged documents with my signature. The equity was gone. When confronted, he cried, claiming gambling debts and threats from loan sharks. I paid off his debts using my life savings. $47,000 gone in an instant. He swore he'd change. Like a fool, I believed him. For a while, things were quiet. I rebuilt my life working as an ER nurse. I rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment, started saving again, and even began dating James, a kind paediatrician who made me laugh. Life was good, hard-earned, but good. Then came the knock on my door. Marcus and Veronica stood there, suitcases in hand, eyes red from crying. "We've lost everything," Marcus sobbed. "The business failed. We couldn't make rent, and they've repossessed our car." Veronica added, "We have nowhere else to go." James warned me. "They've done this before, Eliza. You can't keep bailing them out." But I couldn't turn away my only brother. Just for a month, I told James. Just until they find jobs and get back on their feet. 1 month turned into 2, then 6. I was working my regular 12-hour shifts at the hospital, then heading straight to the cafe for another 6 hours. On my days off, I drove rideshare until 3 a.m. Marcus and Veronica were always just about to get jobs. There were interviews that went great, but never materialised into offers. There were leads that were promising, but never panned out. Meanwhile, my apartment became theirs. They slept in until noon, left dishes in the sink, and complained about the Wi-Fi speed. Their job hunting seemed to involve a lot of TV watching and online shopping, though they assured me those packages were necessities from discount stores. James and I fought about them constantly. "They're using you, Eliza," he'd say. "They're adults. They need to face reality." "They're family," I'd reply. "What am I supposed to do, throw them out on the street?" Eventually, James gave me an ultimatum. Them or him. When I hesitated, he walked out, another casualty of Marcus's presence in my life. By month 8, I was a ghost of myself. I'd lost 20 pounds, my hair was falling out in clumps, and I'd developed a persistent cough. My supervisor at the hospital pulled me aside. "You need rest, Eliza. You're making mistakes. Take some time off before someone gets hurt." But I couldn't afford time off. Marcus needed money for his business startup. Veronica needed a new laptop for her freelance work. The utilities were past due, and they'd somehow maxed out my grocery credit card. The night I collapsed, I was in the middle of a rideshare trip. My passenger, thankfully a medical student, recognised the signs and called an ambulance. At the hospital, my colleagues looked at me with pity as they hooked me up to IVs and ran tests. "Severe exhaustion," Dr. Reynolds said, her face grim. "Your body is shutting down, Eliza. Your immune system is compromised. Your heart is showing signs of strain, and your kidneys aren't functioning properly. You need complete rest for at least 2 weeks." I called Marcus to pick me up. "We can't," he said, sounding annoyed rather than concerned. "The car's almost out of gas and we don't get paid until next week." I didn't bother to ask from what job they were expecting payment. I took a taxi home, spent my last $20 on the fare. As I stumbled into the apartment, I noticed Veronica quickly hiding something under her coat. A designer purse, one I recognised from the ads as costing over $2,000. That night, while they were out networking, I searched their room. What I found destroyed any remaining loyalty I felt toward my brother. Credit card statements in my name for accounts I never opened. Shopping bags containing luxury items with price tags still attached. A browser history showing vacation bookings to the Maldives, using my credit card. When they returned, I was waiting. "How could you?" I asked, the evidence spread out on the coffee table. Marcus didn't even try to deny it. He laughed, and said, "You're so gullible, Eliza, always have been." Veronica shrugged, examining her manicure. "It's not our fault you never asked questions. We needed the money, you had it. Simple business." "Business?" I was shaking with rage. "I'm your sister. I worked myself to death for you." "Drama queen," Marcus rolled his eyes. "You're always so self-righteous. We took advantage, sure, but only because you make it so easy." I grabbed my purse and car keys. I couldn't stay there another minute. As I pulled out of the parking lot, tears blurring my vision, I never saw the truck that ran the red light. The impact was deafening. Metal crashed into metal. Glass shattered. My body jerked violently, then everything went black. My last thought was regret. Not that I was dying, but that I'd wasted my life trying to save someone who never wanted to be saved. Then, inexplicably, light. I opened my eyes to the blaring of an alarm clock. My old alarm clock, the one with the chipped corner that I'd thrown away years ago. I was in my old bedroom, in my old apartment, the one before I'd upgraded to accommodate Marcus and Veronica. The date on my phone, October the 15th, 5 years ago, the day our parents' lawyer called about their will. Impossible. I sat up, heart racing. This couldn't be real, yet everything felt solid. The sheets beneath my fingers, the morning light streaming through my window, the distant sound of traffic. I pinched myself hard enough to leave a mark. Not a dream. Somehow, I'd been given a second chance. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I could prevent it all. The emptied bank accounts, the shattered relationships, the crushing exhaustion that ultimately killed me. I could change everything. When my phone rang and the lawyer's name flashed on the screen, I answered with a steady voice, already knowing what he would say. After hanging up, I called Marcus. His voice, younger, less worn by years of deception, sent a chill down my spine. "The lawyer called," I said. "They're reading the will tomorrow." "About time," he replied. "Any idea what we're getting?" In my previous life, I'd shared every detail, eager to include him. This time, I was measured. "We'll find out tomorrow." At the lawyer's office, I watched Marcus with new eyes. I saw the calculated glances, the practiced expressions of grief that never quite reached his eyes. He was already planning, already seeing dollar signs rather than remembering our parents. When the lawyer explained that the house was left to both of us equally, I spoke up immediately. "I'd like to buy out Marcus's share." Both Marcus and the lawyer looked surprised. "But, sis," Marcus protested, "I thought we agreed to sell it. We could both use the cash." I met his gaze evenly. "I've changed my mind. I want to keep the house. I'll arrange for a fair market valuation and pay you your half." The flash of frustration in his eyes confirmed what I already knew. He'd been planning to manipulate the sale somehow, just as he had before. Over the next few weeks, I watched him carefully. Sure enough, he tried several times to persuade me to sell, each attempt more desperate than the last. But I held firm. When he discovered mortgage paperwork requiring my signature, I was ready. "This is forgery, Marcus," I said calmly, comparing the signature to my own. "I never signed this." His face paled. "It must be a mistake." "No, it's not. And if you pursue this, I'll press charges, family or not." He backed down, but the hatred in his eyes was unmistakable. We completed the buyout, and I paid him his share, less than he'd hoped for, but fair. I made sure the transfer was properly documented and witnessed. With the house secure, I focused on rebuilding my life. I took extra shifts at the hospital, not out of desperation, but to build up savings. I invested wisely, remembering financial advice I'd learned the hard way the first time around. I cultivated friendships I'd neglected before, including with James, though I approached our relationship more cautiously this time. Just as I predicted, 18 months later, my phone rang late one night. Marcus's voice was heavy with practiced distress. "Eliza, I hate to ask, but Veronica and I are in trouble. We lost our apartment and we're barely making ends meet. Could we stay with you for just a few weeks while we get back on our feet?" In my previous life, this was the beginning of the end. This time I was prepared. "I'm sorry to hear that, Marcus," I said, keeping my voice neutral, "but I'm not in a position to offer housing right now." This was true. I'd rented out the second bedroom to a nursing student who helped with utilities. "But you have that big house," he protested, anger seeping through his facade of desperation. "You've got plenty of room." "The house isn't available," I replied. "I can help you research temporary housing options or put you in touch with social services." "Social services?" he spat. "We're not charity cases, we're family. You're supposed to help family." "No." "Yes, family helps family," I agreed. "But exploitation isn't help, Marcus. It's abuse." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know you, brother. I know about the credit card applications in my name. I know about the plans to drain my accounts. I know everything." There was a long silence. Then, "You've changed, Eliza. You used to care." "I still care. That's why I'm saying no. You need to stand on your own feet." He hung up, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The call I dreaded for months was over, and I'd survived. More than survived, I'd protected myself. Over the next few years, Marcus tried various tactics. He sent Veronica to plead their case, claiming he was too proud to ask again himself. He showed up unannounced on my doorstep, suitcases in hand, assuming I wouldn't turn him away in person. He even enlisted distant relatives to guilt me into helping family in need. Each time I stood firm. I offered legitimate help, job leads, financial counselling resources, even to pay for a session with a career advisor. What I didn't offer was money or a place to stay. And each time his true motives became clearer as he rejected any help that didn't involve cash or housing. Meanwhile, my life flourished. I received a promotion at the hospital, becoming the head nurse in the ER. My investment portfolio grew steadily. I renovated parts of the house, making it truly mine. And after taking things slowly, James and I moved in together, our relationship stronger for the careful foundation we'd built. One evening, as James and I were hosting a dinner party for friends, there was a pounding at the door. I opened it to find Marcus clearly intoxicated, his expensive watch and designer clothes at odds with his claims of poverty. "You think you're so much better than me," he slurred, loud enough for everyone inside to hear. "Little Miss Perfect with her perfect house and perfect boyfriend." "You're drunk, Marcus," I said quietly. "Go home." "Home?" he laughed bitterly. "My little sister won't even give me a home. Too selfish to share all this?" He gestured wildly at the house. James stepped up beside me. "You need to leave, Marcus, now." "Or what?" Marcus sneered. "You'll call the cops on family?" "If necessary," I replied steadily, "because real family doesn't act like this. Real family respects boundaries and doesn't try to manipulate and exploit." Something in my calm certainty must have gotten through to him. He stepped back, his anger deflating into something sadder, more pathetic. "You used to care about me," he said, almost to himself. "I still do," I told him, "but caring doesn't mean enabling. When you're ready to accept real help instead of handouts, call me." As we watched him stumble back to his car, where Veronica waited, her face a mask of contempt, James put his arm around me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, surprising myself with how true it was. "Yes, actually, I am." I was free, not just from Marcus's manipulation, but from the guilt and obligation that had driven me to self-destruction in my previous life. I finally understood that saying no wasn't selfish, it was necessary, not just for me, but for Marcus too. My enabling had never helped him, it had only postponed his inevitable confrontation with reality. That night, as I drifted off to sleep beside James, I felt at peace. Whatever cosmic force had given me this second chance, I had used it well. I had saved myself without becoming cruel or bitter, and perhaps someday, when he was truly ready to change, I could help save Marcus too. Not with money or housing, but with the harder, more valuable gift of honesty and appropriate boundaries. The life I'd built was not perfect, but it was authentic. And this time, it was mine. 3 years after Marcus's drunken appearance at my doorstep, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. My finger hovered over the decline button, probably another of his schemes. But something made me answer. "Miss Morgan? Westside General Hospital. Your brother Marcus Morgan has been admitted. You're listed as his emergency contact." My stomach tightened. Despite everything, he was still my brother. What happened?" "Car accident. He's stable but has several fractures and a concussion. He's asking for you." In my previous life, I would have rushed in, checkbook open, ready to solve all his problems. This time, I took a deep breath. I'll be there soon. The hospital corridor seemed endless as I followed a nurse to Marcus's room. He looked broken, not just physically, but in spirit. His confident facade had vanished, replaced by a vulnerability I hadn't seen since we were children. Veronica was nowhere to be seen. "Eliza," he whispered, genuinely surprised. "You actually came." "You're still my brother," I said simply, taking the chair beside his bed. His eyes welled up. Veronica left, said she couldn't handle another setback. He attempted a laugh that came out more like a sob. "Insurance lapsed, can't pay the hospital, nowhere to go when they discharge me." He swallowed hard. "I've really hit bottom this time." I studied his face, looking for the familiar signs of manipulation. Instead, I saw something unfamiliar. Raw truth, not the calculated desperation he'd perfected over years, but the genuine terror of a man who'd finally exhausted all his schemes. "What do you want from me, Marcus?" I asked quietly. For a moment, I glimpsed the brother I'd loved before greed consumed him. "I don't know how to fix my life," he admitted, voice cracking. "I don't even know who I am without the lies anymore." I nodded slowly. "That's actually the first honest thing you've said to me in years." We talked for hours. I didn't offer money or a place to stay. Instead, I outlined what I was willing to do. Help him navigate financial assistance for his medical bills, connect him with resources for temporary housing, and pay for 3 months of therapy, both physical and psychological. "But you need to do the actual work, Marcus," I emphasised. "I'll help you find resources, but I won't bail you out financially. And there are conditions: weekly drug tests, financial counselling, job training. Miss any and my support ends immediately." He stared at the ceiling for a long time. "You really won't let me move in with you, even temporarily?" "No," I said firmly. "That wouldn't help either of us. You need to build your own life, not parasitize mine." Something shifted in his eyes. Not anger, but perhaps the first glimmer of respect. "When did you get so tough, little sister?" I smiled slightly. "When I realised tough love is sometimes the only real love." The first 6 months were the hardest. Marcus tested boundaries constantly, reverting to manipulation when faced with difficult tasks. Twice, I withdrew support when he violated our agreement. Each time, he eventually returned, a little more humble, slightly more committed to change. One particularly bad night, he called me, drunk and angry. "You think you're so perfect," he slurred. "Saint Eliza who never makes mistakes." "I've made plenty," I replied calmly. "The difference is I learned from them instead of blaming others." "You don't know what it's like to fail at everything." "You're right," I said. "I don't. But I do know what it's like to die trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved." My words were met with confused silence. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing you'd understand right now. Call me when you're sober." He did call the next day, ashamed and apologetic. But something had changed between us. For the first time, he seemed to realise that my boundaries weren't about punishing him. They were about protecting myself. 8 months after the accident, Marcus invited me to coffee. He looked different. Cleaner, steadier, his eyes clearer than I'd seen in years. He slid a small envelope across the table. "What's this?" I asked. $600, he replied. "It's not much compared to what I've taken from you over the years, but it's a start. I've been working at the warehouse for 3 months now." I stared at the envelope, stunned. In neither of my lives had Marcus ever repaid a debt. "I've been thinking about why I ended up this way," he continued, fidgeting with his coffee cup. "Always looking for shortcuts, using people. Especially you." He looked up, meeting my eyes. "I was jealous. You always had it together. Good grades, solid career, respect. I wanted what you had without doing the work." "It was work," I confirmed. "Still is." He nodded. "I'm starting to understand that. And I'm sorry, Eliza. Really sorry for everything." In my previous life, I died without ever hearing Marcus take responsibility. The apology unlocked something in my chest, a tight knot of resentment I hadn't even realised I was carrying. "Thank you for saying that," I managed. "It means something." We fell into silence before he spoke again. "The therapist you paid for, she's helped me understand some things. About Mom and Dad, how they always made excuses for me, never held me accountable." "They thought they were showing love," I said quietly. "But they were setting me up to fail," he finished. "And when you finally stopped doing the same, I hated you for it. But now I think—" He paused, struggling for words. "I think you're the only one who ever really loved me enough to let me face reality." I hadn't expected this level of insight from Marcus. For the first time, I felt genuine hope that this change might be real. The next 2 years weren't perfect. There were weeks when Marcus disappeared, falling into old patterns, only to emerge later, recommitted to recovery. But the trajectory was upward. He found stable housing with roommates. He stayed at his job, eventually earning a promotion. He started taking night classes at the community college. On the 3rd anniversary of his accident, what he now called his wake-up call, Marcus invited me and James to dinner at a modest restaurant. He insisted on paying, proudly handing his credit card to the server. "I have news," he announced over dessert. "I've been accepted to the business administration program, full-time starting next semester." He smiled slightly. "And I applied for financial aid myself. No forgeries, no scams." "Marcus, that's wonderful," I said, genuinely proud. "There's more," he continued, pulling out his phone to show us photos. "I have been saving, not much, but enough for a down payment on a small condo. It's nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom in the older part of town, but it'll be mine. Legitimately mine." As he talked about his plans, I marvelled at the transformation. This wasn't the entitled brother who'd expected the world to support him. This was a man building something through honest effort, finding dignity in self-reliance. Later that night, walking home with James, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Pride in Marcus, gratitude for my second chance, and a lingering sadness for the years lost in my previous life. "You're quiet," James observed, squeezing my hand. "Just thinking," I replied, "about choices and consequences. How different things could have been." "You know," he said thoughtfully, "when you first told me about your decision to cut Marcus off, I thought you were being harsh. But you saw something I didn't, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is stop protecting them from the consequences of their actions." I nodded, thinking of my 2 lives. The one where I'd sacrificed everything to shield Marcus from reality, and this one where I'd allowed him to face it. In the first, we'd both been destroyed. In this one, we were both flourishing. It wasn't just about him, I admitted. It was about me too, about learning that I have value beyond what I can give to others, that I deserve a life of my own. James kissed my temple. "You certainly do." 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of Marcus's new condo, watching him arrange furniture with a care I'd never seen him show for anything. The place was small, but bright, with large windows overlooking a community garden. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing proudly at the space. "It's perfect," I told him sincerely. "It feels like you—" He smiled, a genuine smile, not the charming grin he'd once used to manipulate. "It does, doesn't it? First time I've ever felt that way about anywhere I've lived." As we unpacked boxes together, I found myself thinking about the strange miracle of my rebirth. In my first life, I'd enabled Marcus until it killed me, yet never actually helped him. In this one, by refusing to save him, I'd given him the opportunity to save himself. That evening, after helping Marcus settle in, I found myself alone on his small balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I closed my eyes, remembering the moment of impact in my previous life. The crushing metal, the darkness, and then that inexplicable light. Marcus joined me, handing me a cup of tea. "Penny, for your thoughts?" I opened my eyes, smiling at him. "Just grateful to be here." "Me too," he said quietly. "I wouldn't be, if you hadn't stood your ground. If you'd rescued me again, I'd still be drowning." I nodded, unexpectedly moved. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. He leaned against the railing beside me. "I have a job interview next week, assistant manager position. Better pay, benefits. My boss recommended me." "You'll do great," I told him, and meant it. "You know what's funny?" he mused. "All those years I thought I needed the shortcuts, the scams to get ahead. Turns out, doing things the right way, it's actually working better for me. Who knew?" I laughed softly. "Some lessons we have to learn the hard way." As we stood side by side watching the sunset, I felt a profound sense of completion. The cycle that had destroyed us both in my previous life had been broken. Marcus was becoming the person he could have been all along, and I was living fully, with boundaries that protected me and relationships that nourished me. That night, driving home to James, I found myself crying, not from sadness, but from a profound sense of release. In my first life, I'd allowed myself to be consumed by a toxic sense of obligation, working myself literally to death, trying to save someone who saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit. In this second chance at life, I'd learned that saying no wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Not just for me, but for those I loved as well. By refusing to be Marcus's enabler, I'd given him the greatest gift possible, the chance to face reality and grow from it. I pulled into our driveway, wiping away tears. Through the window, I could see James in the kitchen, dancing slightly as he prepared dinner, completely unself-conscious. The sight filled me with such joy that I sat for a moment just watching him, savouring the life we'd built together, a life I would never have experienced if I hadn't learned to value myself. As I stepped through the door, James looked up and smiled, that special smile he reserved just for me. "Welcome home," he said simply. And I was home, not just in this house, but in this life. A life where I was neither victim nor martyr, but simply myself. A life where I could love without being drained, give without being exploited, help without being consumed. The mystery of my rebirth might never be solved. Perhaps it was just the universe offering a second chance, a cosmic do-over for a life cut tragically short. Or perhaps it was something more profound, a lesson that needed to be learned, not just for my sake, but for Marcus's as well. Whatever the reason, I had used my second chance well. I had rewritten my story, and in doing so, helped my brother rewrite his. We were both, in our own ways, reborn. As James pulled me into his arms, I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Everything okay?" he asked. I smiled up at him, completely present in this moment, in this beautiful second life I'd been granted. Everything is exactly as it should be. And for the first time in either of my lives, that was absolutely true.